We are heading now to Oklahoma to talk about Superintendent Ryan Walters and what he did this week that was weird, heinous, and cruel, and just downright obnoxious. Kelly has the story. Kelly?
My top favorite elected religious bigot, Oklahoma School Superintendent Ryan Walters, has tried to break the U.S. Constitution once again. This time, claiming that people pointing out that he is breaking the law are, in his eyes, breaking the law. Walters is claiming that the Freedom from Religion Foundation, whom he calls radical atheists, are attacking individuals, teachers, and students, a claim that, of course, the FFRF denies, and there is absolutely no evidence of. Last month, the FFRF did successfully sue Walters and kept him from spending $3 million on Trump Bibles to put in every classroom within the state of Oklahoma. This lawsuit, filed recently by Walters against the atheist organization, really looks more like retribution for that success over the superintendent's religious policies than it does look like something that is, constitutionally legal. However, Walters has already shown he is more than willing to put the Bible before the Constitution in Oklahoma's public schools. Now, you don't need to be a lawyer. You don't even need to have ever watched a show on TV about lawyers to know that this lawsuit is a joke and cannot gain any traction in the U.S. federal court. This story is from The Friendly Atheist by Hemant Mehta from April 2nd, 2025.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And I'm going to stick with you because I think that you alluded to this in your introduction. But, why do some political leaders, especially with Mr. Walters, frame church state, or as I was recently told, religion and government separation as an attack on faith?
Why do they see it that way? You know what? I don't know why they see it that way. I understand that them seeing that way is what is becoming a large problem for us in many places, like Oklahoma. We're having problems with in Texas with the schools there, in Louisiana with the schools there, where they now have to post the 10 Commandments in all the classrooms. And I think these people see this as a win over secular society. Like, they took prayer out of school back in the 1950s, and we're going to make sure it gets back in there, even if we have to do it little by little by little. I mean, they chipped away at abortion rights for 50 years until they got what they almost have and completely what they wanted. And they're still working on that. But it's the same type of strategy. We're just going to chip away at it. Chip, 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 chip. Nobody notices the chip. Everybody notices when you knock the arm off the statue, but a little chip off the bottom of it, nobody notices until it's too late.
Yeah, and they're doing it little by little, like you said. Here in Texas, they're doing the same thing. The 10 Commandments, the Blue Bonnet curriculum that has a lot of like biblical stories on it. It passes actually on there. So, I mean, religion just does not belong in public spaces, especially in tax-funded places like schools. And I think Ryan Walters is confusing what freedom of religion means. Like, it doesn't mean you're free to bring your religion into all of these places, right? Freedom of religion means that you can practice whatever religion you want as long as you're not shoving it in other people's faces. Like, freedom from religion is just as important as freedom of religion. So
I think that when we are looking at some political leaders like Ryan Walters, and I think that this is one of the reasons why we cover him a lot, is because I don't really believe that they understand that the freedom from religion is also a protectant for the religious. Because what ends up happening is that you do not have government, the state, the nation, coming into your institutions to tell you how you're supposed to practice your said religion, or put stipulations on you on how your religion is supposed to go. So it's protecting the religious as well as us who happen to want to live our lives secular. We don't necessarily have to be concerned with religious edicts, institutions, and the like dictating our life. But unfortunately, people like Ryan Walters and other Christian nationalists who have been elected into office are blurring those lines, and other institutions that prop them up are blurring those lines so that they can now dictate, no matter what your belief is, or even if you are not necessarily a Christian or a believer in Christ or anything like that, how you're supposed to live your life. This is the problem. And it's even creeping into our curriculum. You notice, like, I'm pretty sure that because we covered this before, in 2023 and 2024 is the most that you will see, like, different institutions actually spending money on school board elections. Like, record amounts of money being spent on school board elections because they want to put people into, and when I say they, I mean Christian nationalist institutions, want to put people into those seats that are of their ideology in order for them to influence curriculum to be able to indoctrinate kids. Get them while they're young. This is why Ryan Walters is pushing Bibles in school, specific Bibles with the Constitution or the preamble or whatever the hell was in front that was leather bound and all this other craziness. I was like, can you imagine a kindergartner like walking around with this big old leather bound Bible inside school? I'm learning to read, mama. Like, you know, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And now that this is going to be the thing that's going to be influencing like what they're being taught, it's insane. But I know that, Rob, you mentioned that you don't necessarily believe that this is real. Can you just like expand like on what your thoughts are when it comes to this whole shebang?
Yeah, ultimately, Ryan Walter confuses me because I'm genuinely curious. This isn't a bit, like, if he understands what the protections of freedom of religion are and things like that. Like, generally people are not that stupid, especially if you become a superintendent, even though it's possible to have that happen. So what I absolutely don't want to do is just like make fun of a dude or tell him he's dumb. But like, as he keeps coming up, I actually don't know if he's villainous and monstrous or if he's just this abjectly stupid. Like, it can only be one of the other. So what was happening specifically that came up is some of at least one teacher was specifically doing a Bible reading, a prayer before every class that was not relevant to the material. And since they're a school which receives government funding, they are not allowed to push any particular religion. And since you can totally study religions in school, you should. You cannot give one more of a mouthpiece as if it has any more credibility or realness to it. So this wasn't like, oh, some of the students wanted to hold a prayer sometimes, and the Freedom from Religious said no. The school staff was literally putting on prayer with the students. This cannot occur. This is a strictly, obviously, there is no two ways about it, illegal act. Cool. Okay, so we're there. This is wrong. Now this guy comes in and says, they can't tell us to stop. And I'm like, my dude, yes, they can, because it is clearly illegal. There's no wiggle room here. So at some point, I have to stop believing that he's this stupid, because he can't be. He must be monstrous. I have found this to be evil with the amount of times he brings it up and refuses to change his behavior. This is wild to me.
Rob, you just say that what they were doing was illegal, and you shared just a little bit of what the story was. Let me share just a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
Is it that from what I read in the article, in at least one instance, a student actually read Bible verses to the whole class, like in front of the class, for the whole class, right? And then the district also, the whole district, not just one school, was beginning the school day with mandatory student-led prayer over the loudspeaker but this was after the first period would start. Therefore, like, everybody was forced to partake in that. Like, you couldn't just get out of it because it was already, class had already started, so you would probably get in trouble if you wanted to get out. Like, if it was something like a moment of silence, that would be legal. So what they tried to do to get away with it was, like, they would instruct students to who were making all these announcements to call it that, to call it a moment of silence or prayer. But it wasn't done quietly. It was followed by the student making the announcement, praying over the intercom for the entire fucking school. So, like, it was definitely not secular, and it was definitely illegal.
I think that what we're dealing with is that the right is using, and I think that you guys probably remember this case with Joe Kennedy, from who was a teacher. He was a football coach in Alabama who was marching or telling his, he was leading prayers rather on the 50-yard line after every game, even though his team was not a winning team. I repeat, the team sucked. Like, never won a championship. That all the praying in the world did not help their playing. Nope. The praying did not help the playing whatsoever. And the school ended up discontinuing his contract when his contract was up. They did not want to renew it, even though they told him multiple times, like, hey, Mr. Kennedy, tell you what, pray, but can't you do it like in the locker room and not on the 50-yard line when you're done? Because he was not just, he was telling the students and inviting others, even from like the other team and other people who happen to be around and other students, to come out and pray with them, take a knee, do all this other bullshit, right? So it was a case that the appellate court said, no, the school was in the right in order for them not to renew the contract. There's no rights that was violated here. If anything, you messed up because you were at a public school and you blurred the lines of the establishment clause. That's what you did, Mr. Kennedy. And so they were in their right because they tried to work with you within your means, and you decided to do your own thing. Goes all the way up to the Supreme Court. All the way up to the Supreme Court. Felt it was so interesting that the concurrent address from none other than Brett Kavanaugh was his religious freedom practices were violated. So the school was made to put him back into his position, even though he moved all the way from Alabama to Florida, almost over 100 miles away.
And what did he do after he got rehired?
He was there. He quit.
He quit.
He quit.
Yep, he quit.
Yeah, he quit. I think it wasn't even after one game.
Yeah, I think it was one game he played.
Yeah. After one game, he quit. So, I mean, like, so it was a waste of time. It was a waste of taxpayer money to even have this case. It shouldn't even been taken up in the first place. But even though he did all of that, it was more so a thing of, hey, now the Supreme Court has said that
Chip,
right.
Chip.
Yeah, we're chipping. We're chipping now. We're chipping now. Now the Supreme Court has said that, hey, he was able to do this because his religious freedom practices were violated by the school. Then now all the people who are paying attention to this particular case, who are in the Christian nationalist sphere, is saying, okay, let's go ahead and push this. Even Justice Sotomayor said the lemon test, look it up, guys, the lemon test is dead. But I want to hear more from Kelly because I want to know about the oppositions to Walters and how it actually may be affected in the better or affected in the worse?
There has been quite a bit of opposition to Walter's policies throughout the state, especially in Tulsa, where last year 3 candidates who were elected to the city school board were openly defiant of Walter's policies in public. There's also been a lot of criticism from the indigenous peoples who are trying to keep their traditional beliefs with their children. Because they're getting bombarded with Christian messages at public schools, which is really the very place where something like this shouldn't be happening. So there are some bright spots in opposition to him, people who probably deserve more support. Here's something that sounds bad, but it might really be good in the long term, in the long run. His term in office is up next year, and so is the governor's term. Now, there's been rumors about him running for the governor's office and instead of rerunning for a superintendent. And quite frankly, I'm not sure he can win that post with his radical far-right religious views. They do tend to not carry over to higher state offices. Oklahoma might be a little bit different, but I still don't think he'd be able to win the governor's election. He is in his first elected office altogether, so people don't know what they were getting for the most part when they elected him the first time. But now that his views and his ideas are out there for all to see, he's been criticized all across the country. I'm pretty sure he just won't be elected as governor, let alone school superintendent again. So hopefully, we'll see him maybe try to run for that office, and in the process of running for that office, not be the school superintendent also.
Well,
so
you
keep our fingers
hope.
crossed.
You hope, but the issue is that when people like Trump can run and win, then what's happening is all of this that he's doing is meant to galvanize and virtue signal, I guess,
Like I
in
said,
the opposite
Oklahoma,
direction.
man,
Yeah.
Well, I just have to reiterate that we here at the Atheist Community of Austin does not actually endorse nor denigrate any type of candidates who happen to run or actually are in office at this particular moment in time. I think that when it even comes with this particular case, like, we are looking specifically at the policies that this particular person is doing. Now, whether if they are going to go for a different office or not, we don't know what would happen as far as like them actually occupying that office. But if they win, if they lose, or even if they run at all, it will be up to the people to decide if they're going to be in office, and we would not endorse them or de-dorse them. I don't even know if that's a word.
Oppose.
Oppose them, yeah.
Or oppose them. I like de-dorse. But all words are made up. Regardless, yes, endorse or oppose them, whether they're going to be in office or not. But I did want to ask a question to the panel in of itself, and I'm going to start with you, AJ, then Kelly, and then Rob, because at the end of the day, one of the things that we have to look at when it comes to the possible indoctrination or the not indoctrination of children in schools is those who happen to be in the classrooms that's teaching them. So how can educators uphold constitutional law without being caught in the crossfire of political theater? AJ, please start, then Kelly, and then Rob.
Well, I mean, any way you look at it, there are clauses in the Constitution regarding religion, and one of them is, like you mentioned earlier, the Establishment Clause, and it says that the government cannot promote or endorse any particular religion, and this includes public schools because they are, government spaces. So public schools just cannot lead or require students to participate in prayer or display religious symbols and any of that stuff. And this also includes teachers. So if teachers want to follow the law, they can say, you know what, I am not gonna teach this curriculum that you're giving me that has biblical connotations. I'm not going to display these 10 commandments on the wall because it's against the law, even though, they want to make it the law that schools need to display the 10 commandments, whatever. It is against the establishment clause. So yeah, they can definitely cite the Constitution to defend their decisions, to oppose those type of things.
Thank you. Kelly?
I don't think they can not get caught in the middle of it. That's the problem. I don't think it's possible for them. In fact, in Louisiana, I mentioned that the 10 Commandments law that they passed have to be posted in all the classrooms. There is a lawsuit against that law, and it was brought by a teacher who was actually the teacher of the year in Louisiana. So, I mean, teachers are on the front lines here, and they probably deserve more support than they're getting. And I always said that about teachers. Teachers definitely need more support than they get. So, Rob?
You're right. Ultimately, how can educators uphold constitutional law? By doing their jobs. Without being caught in the crossfire by political theater, they cannot. The problem is executing the Constitution as it is written, or executing the spirit and the understanding of how the freedom of religion is supposed to be executed within the country, when that very execution is itself the thing being targeted. Then when the teachers follow the law, they are in fact putting themselves into the politicalness, the political theater of it all. It cannot be avoided. Therefore, don't try and stand strong. Do more. Be loud. You can't avoid it, so win.
Yeah, we understood that.
Yeah. I've traveled around the country quite a bit over the last couple of years, and everywhere I go, people are always complaining about stuff. I hear them talking about LGBTQ rights, about inflation, about DEI, the wage gap, affirmative action, all kinds of stuff. I hear people complaining about all the time, you name it. And I think it's time for Americans to shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up, get off your asses, put that game controller down, and go out there and start changing the things that you think need to be changed.
Well, I will say this, people. Change does not happen from the top down. It happens from the bottom up. But one thing that you can do, dear viewer and listener, from the bottom is click here for No Nonprofits.